I took care of the paralyzed Daniel with meticulous attention for 2 years. Everyone thought the first thing he'd do, when he stood up, would be to marry me. Only I, on the night his surgery succeeded, asked, "Do you still want to marry me?" He hesitated, and in the end, he couldn't bring himself to utter that simple answer. I let out a laugh. "I get it." I cooled off the ring and, without a moment's hesitation, left the place I'd lived in for 2 years. "Do you still want to marry me?" Daniel froze at the question, staring at his legs for a long time without speaking. The noise from outside seeped through the half-opened door. The doctor said Daniel's surgery was a complete success. He'll be back to normal in less than half a month. I really never thought Daniel would recover. 2 years ago, he almost gave up on himself. Thank goodness his sister-in-law stuck by him. They must be getting married soon. Better start a family while the mood's right. His tense body slowly relaxed. I didn't leave following the acupuncture the massage parlor owner had taught me. I pressed again. His legs couldn't move. So he threw a pillow at my head. I didn't flinch. He grabbed whatever was within reach and hurled it all at me. Finally, it was a photo frame, a picture of him in college, one hand holding a trophy, the other clenched in a fist. Radiating confidence and pride, warm blood trickled down my forehead. He looked at me, trying to struggle toward me. But his legs trapped him, rendering him helpless. In the end, he covered his face and suddenly burst into tears. Just go, get out of my sight. It's useless. I can't feel a thing no matter how you press. It's useless." He was giving up on himself, but I never missed a day, rushing over to massage him rain or shine until his mother found him after he'd swallowed sleeping pills. Panicking as she rushed him to the hospital, his mother was at her wit's end. I squatted down in front of him and said, "Look at me." He obeyed, and I told him, "Everything will get better, trust me." At the time, I had no idea where that confidence came from. From that day on, I moved into his house. Daniel's mother thanked me through tears, saying she was grateful I was there. She hesitated, and I knew what she wanted to ask. So I said, "I'll stay by his side as long as Daniel doesn't chase me away." But the truth was, I wouldn't have left even if he had chased me. The next time a massage did nothing, he flew into a rage. "Get out, all of you. Get out." By then he was in a wheelchair. The entire bedroom lay in shambles from his outburst. But there was a silver lining. He'd started avoiding me, no longer throwing things at me after he'd finished venting. I inched closer and said again, "Daniel, trust me. I said that for 2 years. Gradually, he could feel the pressure on his legs. Then, little by little, he could make simple movements. Until yesterday's surgery, even the doctors were amazed, saying it had gone perfectly. Barring any accidents, he'd stand again. When Daniel's mother heard the news, she pressed a bank card into my hand. I stared at it, dazed. I hadn't spent these 2 years for a bank card. Daniel's friends all called me sister-in-law. But only I knew the truth. I was nothing of the sort. We didn't ever even confessed our feelings, let alone defined our relationship. But there was that one thing. Daniel had said, "Iris, once my legs are better, we'll get married right away." It would discourage treatment. The doctor had gently broken the bad news, and I was pushing him home. He fell apart the moment we walked in. A former prodigy, suddenly toppled from his pedestal. No one could bear that. I held him tight, and he bit down on my shoulder. He bit so hard, the mark still lingers. When he saw the blood, he snapped back to his senses, panicking as he apologized. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." After he apologized, I massaged his calves as usual. That's when he said it. "Now first," he gasped, "Iris, are you secretly in love with me?" I didn't evade. I looked at him and said yes. He stared at me for a long time before saying he'd marry me. But I'd never done all this as some kind of quid pro quo. I just wanted him to feel what I felt, prayed that one day he might love me too. Now, I stood up as I always did, pouring medicinal oil into my palms, and rubbing them until warm before touching his calves. I knew he was watching me. After a while, his voice came from above. "Iris, you don't have to do this anymore." My hands paused, but I kept going until I finished. I looked up, asking once more, stubbornly, "Daniel, do you still want to marry me?" He opened his mouth as if to speak, but in the end, he stayed silent. I could only laugh at my own wishful thinking. But the ring on my ring finger, he put it there himself. Having loved him secretly for so many years, how could I not have dared to hope? I stood up and washed the medicinal oil off my hands. The ring on my ring finger felt like a weight, aching in my chest. He spoke from outside the door. Iris. You're like a little sister to me. Tears splashed into the sink. I wiped them away quickly. Don't he say that? That's too cruel even for me. When I pushed open the bathroom door, the living room was still noisy. I lowered my head to meet Daniel's eyes and struggled to pull off the ring. It had never fit, after all too small by a size. I'd never known if he'd been careless, or if it had never been meant for me, but I knew this. I'd forced it on. And it had squeezed my finger until it hurt. Only before, I'd lied to myself that all rings felt like that. When it finally came off, my finger felt a sense of relief. I almost regretted not taking it off sooner. Daniel's gaze darted away. I held the ring out to him. Here, take it back. The indent on my finger was clear. I added, it's too small by a size. He started to say something, but I waved him off and wheeled him out. As soon as we stepped out, his friends in the living room swarmed around us. What sweet nothings are you lovebirds, whispering, not even letting us listen in. Don't worry, we won't tease you today. Save that for the wedding. We'll hang out a bit longer, then head out. Daniel's friends were just like him, polite, knowing when to stop. Mindful of his recent surgery, they'd brought only juice and light dishes. Someone asked Daniel, hey, once you're better, we'll head to Italy's for skiing again. Yeah, Daniel agreed casually, no longer panicking at the mention of skiing or basketball. As he once had, his friend turned to me. Sister-in-law should come too. Daniel, I'll book your ticket. You'll love it. Daniel looked up at me, passing the question to me. Rejected twice already. Even I, for all my stubbornness, had my pride. I'll pass, I said, but Daniel spoke up suddenly. It wouldn't hurt to come along. After all, I see you as a little sister. The words hung in the air. Everyone fell completely silent. His friend laughed and smacked him on the head. Daniel, what kind of joke are you pulling? Immediately, more friends jumped in to smooth things over. His legs just got better. He's not thinking straight. Don't he take it to heart? Sister-in-law. The comment got brushed off in the playful banter, but Daniel stayed quiet the whole time. I thought back too long ago, when a close friend saw the ring on my finger and asked, Iris, are you sure? They're not from our world. If his legs really heal, do you think he'll actually marry you? Back then, I couldn't bring myself to answer. No, I still couldn't. But Daniel had given me my answer now. The party stayed cheerful. Soft music, people chatting about old times. I hung my head and looked up. Italy's on my phone. Not widely known, but a famous local ski resort. I couldn't understand a word they were saying. It was only then that I vaguely grasped what my friend meant by not from the same world. I stood up, and Daniel's gaze instantly locked onto me. I went back to my bedroom. Calling it mine was generous. Everything in it had been bought by Daniel's mother. I called the woman who cried and thanked me 2 years ago. I rubbed my fingertips and asked, Auntie, that bank card you gave me? She sounded like she'd been waiting for me to bring it up before I could finish. She cut in, €6. Take it all. Thank you for taking care of Daniel these 2 years. I let out a heavy hem. There was nothing to pack. I tossed my few clothes into the trash. I left, carrying the card. Passing through the living room, one of Daniel's friends asked, Sister-in-law, it's this late. Where are you going? I didn't want to put Daniel on the spot, so I smiled widely. I'm hungry. Going out for a bowl of wonton soup. They teased about ordering takeout, but I declined. Your takeout would cost hundreds. Not worth it. Daniel must have realized something. He looked up, staring at me without blinking. I waved to everyone in the room. I'm off. At 1 a.m, I left the place I'd lived in for 2 years, carrying that bank card. I suppose it wasn't nothing. I found myself a place to stay. No need to watch over Daniel every second. No need to fear he have a breakdown in the night. My body suddenly relaxed, and I couldn't adjust. I couldn't sleep. So I stood on the balcony with a glass of water, staring at the few stars in the sky. In the dead silence, I started listening to my own feelings. I thought I'd be sad, heartbroken, but I wasn't. I just touched the red ring-shaped mark on my finger, wondering when it would fade. That night, all I noticed was that the wind was a little cold, and the stars were a little bright. Daniel called the next early morning. I answered, but there was no sound from his end. Finally, I spoke up. Something wrong? He hesitated, then said, Iris, I want custard buns for breakfast. After he'd been paralyzed, he refused to eat. I tried one thing after another, but he clamped his mouth shut. refusing a single bite in the end. My tears hit the floor, and I begged, just one bite, you can't survive without eating. Maybe I annoyed him with my crying. He frowned and took a bite of the custard bun. He hated store-bought ones, so I've learned to make them myself. But the memory of yesterday was still fresh. I could still feel the weight of his silence. I said calmly, Daniel, I'm gone. Silence stretched on the other end. I didn't know what else to say, so I hung up. The amount in the bank card was staggering. I stared at the zeros, stunned. I counted them over and over. Still disbelieving. I tucked the card away carefully, and only then did I truly get what my friend meant. They're not from the same world. It was true, my parents were just ordinary people. They knew I was taking care of my paralyzed boyfriend and even came to visit back then. Daniel's mother had treated them warmly, and they'd left flustered, telling me, honey, this is going to be tough. But they didn't stop me. They just waved and said, go on. Try worst case, you come home. It was only now, 2 years later, that I vaguely understood Daniel's mother's actions. Those plates of expensive dishes had surprised even Daniel, let alone to people from a small town. Her warm hospitality had been a clear message to my parents: we were not from the same world. I used the card to buy a new apartment, didn't even make a dent in the zeros. I stayed busy with renovations and such. 2 weeks later, I ran into Daniel by chance, at a CIF near my neighborhood. His friends were wheeling him around, egging him on. Daniel, if you don't chase Iris back, I'll lose all respect for you. Apologized to sister-in-law. Who else could ever be sister-in-law but her? I'm telling you. I only recognize her. Daniel hadn't been outside in 2 years. His skin was pale, almost blindingly so in the sunlight. He heard his friends' half-teasing, half-insistent jokes, and pulled up the corner of his mouth in a lazy reply: we LL talk when Iris actually shows up in front of me. Unluckily, I was sitting at the table right behind them. I heard that and tried to hide, but the next second, a friend walking out of the CF called my name cheerfully. Iris. She ran over, excited to share. They got your favorite cake today. Daniel's whole table went silent. I watched as they followed her gaze and saw me. My friend set the cake down, noticing my sudden change in expression, and frowned. What's wrong? She tensed up, reacting to my mood. Then I realized they were just fooling around. While let them ruin my mood. I forced a smile. Nothing. Sit down. You remembered my favorite cake? That one sentence opened the floodgates of conversation. We were too close. Daniel's Abel's voices drifted over, unavoidable. Fate speaking. Daniel, go apologize. You won't find another sister-in-law this good. I'm serious. If you don't sort this out, we're not friends anymore. I recognized every voice. When Daniel was bedridden, they'd all come to visit. One by one. Among them was a girl who'd had a crush on Daniel. When she went in to see him, he deliberately spilled water on her dress. It was hot, and the dress was thin. Once wet, it clung to her skin, leaving little to the imagination. The girl stood there, mortified. I found a shawl and handed it to her. Daniel's eyes were cold as he sneered at her. You still into me? Even like this? Her eyes went red. I gently closed the door when she came out. She lifted her chin proudly and said, I don't want to like Daniel anymore. He's not worth it. She turned to leave with her damp skirt. But halfway, she came back. She watched me cleaning up the water spots her skirt had left on the living room floor, and mumbled awkwardly, but you're nice. Thanks. You shouldn't like Daniel either. He doesn't deserve you. Then she ran off. Later, we became friends. We even exchanged gifts on holidays. The people around Daniel, they weren't bad. I was lost in these thoughts while listening to my friend. It wasn't until Daniel's voice cut through that I realized he was standing beside me. He called my name, Iris. I looked up instinctively. His brows were furrowed tight. But upon seeing me, he suddenly seemed unable to say whatever was on his mind. Behind him, his friends were all cheering. Daniel, apologize. Win her back. Daniel's frown deepened at that. But I didn't need his apology now. Love was always a matter of mutual willingness. Besides, hadn't I taken that bank card? I still hadn't fully wrapped my head around all those zeros. You can't have your cake and eat it too. After all, Daniel stood there, staring at me, and I spoke up, watching his conflicted expression. No need. I don't need an apology. He let out a breath, as if relieved, and started to turn away. But halfway, he looked back. When will you come back? Maybe I hadn't made it clear last time, so this time I explained plainly, I'm not coming back. Daniel's eyes stayed on me, as if turning something over in his mind. Finally, he grunted ahem. He went back to his table, where our mutual friends were all watching. Amused? Well, did you win her back? When's the wedding? When do I get to wrap wedding candies? No wedding. Daniel's voice was flat, tinged with impatience. The table fell silent. Daniel repeated himself, raising his voice unconsciously. Why would you think I'd marry her? And I supposed to marry her just because I'm grateful? I told you I see her as a little sister. Third time. You can't keep pushing when someone's made their stance clear. I stood up too, turning to his friends. You misunderstood about the wedding. I was just getting paid to take care of Daniel. Daniel tilted his head back, staring at me heavily. I met his gaze steadily. Looking at his furrowed brows, I added, no need to see me as a sister either. Strangers are fine. During the time I cared for Daniel, I'd sometimes catch myself wondering, if Will hadn't gotten into that car accident, would he have fallen in love with Clark? At first, I thought yes then. Now back and forth, but never found an answer. I'll never know their answer. But I know mine and Daniel's. Daniel started dating, and made a big show of it. He announced it on social media, openly introducing the girl to his friends. It was impossible for me not to hear about it. I ran into Daniel and his girlfriend at a party. We had so many mutual friends. No one expected the overlap when Daniel walked in with her. The friend beside me squeezed my hand. After all, they'd all seen how I'd cared for him those 2 years. 2 eyes, 1 mouth. Daniel saw me too. He picked a corner table near the door and sat down. As soon as he did, he asked the waiter for a fruit platter. When it came, he set it in front of the girl. She smiled, eyes crinkling, and leaned in to whisper something to him. She chattered excitedly. But he didn't even bother to lower his head. His gaze stayed on the fruit platter, listening lazily. Anyone could see how half-hearted he was. If this was what dating him was like, it seemed pretty dull. I wasn't bothered, but my friend was. She'd had too much to drink, pulling me aside to say she'd set me up with someone. I gently reminded her she was drunk as I helped her up to leave. Daniel's girlfriend met my eye. Sister, I know who you are, she said. I paused. She went on, thank you for taking care of Daniel. I nodded and started to go. But she, eager to one-up me, didn't notice the sudden hush around us. She hurried to her feet, stepping in front of me. But if I'd been by Daniel's side back then, I could have done the same. All those random outbursts, the flying cups, the sleepless nights, she thought she could have handled that. I let out a soft laugh. Anyone can say that, but there's no if. Though who knows? If Daniel's legs acted up again, she could always try. Daniel's face had already darkened. A friend stepped in to diffuse the tension. I joined in, joking to lighten things. If that ever happens, might as well pay for a nurse. Even that made Daniel angry. Bang. A glass hit the table hard. I turned to look. He scowled, voice sharp with irritation. It's over. Why bring it up? Pointless. But if it was over, why couldn't we talk about it? He just hated being reminded. Saw it as humiliation. The next day, my friend sobered up, heard what happened, and couldn't stop cursing. What's her deal? Bragging right to your face? Let her brag. I counted the zeros in my bank account again. I wasn't even angry at S when I realized how powerful money could be. But my friend thought I was putting on a brave front. Daniel's dating someone new, she said again. Want me to find you a boyfriend? With your looks, it'd take 2 seconds. These days, dating moves fast. But I wanted to slow down. I wanted to meet someone, get to know them, fall in love gradually. Swap sincerity for sincerity. I declined gently. No, thanks. My refusal only convinced her I was still heartbroken over Daniel, waiting for him. She ranted about him, and I laughed, joining in with a few jabs. Days passed. I learned to bake, to arrange flowers. Plenty of people showed interest, but when I suggested taking things slow, they backed off like I'd scared them. Less than 2 weeks later, I'd see posts of them with new girlfriends. My friend joked I was a professional matchmaker. I laughed too. I really wasn't in a hurry. Thus 2 years, my whole heart had been with Daniel. Now, I wanted to focus on myself first. I needed to empty my heart first before I could let someone else in. Whoever I let in next would have to be as sincere as I was. I still believed in sincerity meeting sincerity. Daniel broke up, then started dating again. Less than a week later, another big announcement. Friends slowly accepted that Daniel and I were done. Like Clark, I learned to dive, spending days hauling gear to find interesting reefs. I was away from City A for half a year. But news of Daniel still found its way to me. He broke up again, maybe he'd had a realization he stopped. Suddenly Daniel's friends started dropping hints, joking that he was single now, urging me to come back. The Lunar New Year drew near, and I had to return home, but I didn't expect everyone to be waiting when I got off the plane. Daniel's friends were all there. Teasing, "Sis Iris, you've tanned a lot." They hadn't distanced themselves just because Daniel and I didn't work out. One friend, the day Daniel and I cleared the air, had even texted, "Sis Iris, I want to be friends with you, even without Daniel." What I didn't expect was that Daniel was there too. He stood far off, staring into space, as if lost in thought, but in the end, he stepped forward and said to me, "Long time no see." Half a year ago, his attitude toward me had been laced with subtle antipathy. Now, he spoke to me like an old friend. I replied politely, "Long time no see." He hesitated, then started, "About my legs." He was cut off by my phone ringing. I smiled apologetically at them and answered. As soon as I picked up, a bright, youthful voice came through, "Hey, sis, where are you? I'll send you my location. Take your time, no rush." My friends gathered around, chattering about where to go for dinner. Once they'd finished, I asked, "Mind if we had one more person?" They all looked surprised. At who else? A flash of bright orange caught the eye. His jacket was so vivid it almost dazzled. I told him to take it slow, but he came running up to me anyway. He took my hand right away, clingy as ever, and said, "I missed you so much." His movement was so quick, my friends barely had time to react. I tried to take my suitcase from him, but he refused. That's when I introduced him to my friends. "This is William, my boyfriend." Sometimes, fate is strange that way. It comes out of nowhere, at a time you never imagined. When William confessed to me, I'd said, as usual, "Let's take it slow." I'd even braced myself for him to back off after 2 weeks. But I never expected him to stick around so long. Before I knew it, he was everywhere in my life. I'm not young anymore. Most people, when I say take it slow, think I'm stringing them along, but not this young man. When he heard take it slow, he really meant it. Sincere, warm, and steady. "Wow, you kept him under wraps well," one friend said. "If you hadn't come back, we might never have met him." No way around it. "You're paying for this meal." It wasn't that I'd hidden him. I hadn't even expected he'd come back with me. I'd missed my flight because of traffic and had to rebook the next one. He texted me, sounding pitiful, "Why aren't you here yet? I'm mad at you." That's when I found out he bought the seat next to mine to surprise me, only for us to miss each other by this twist of fate. He ended early and waited at the airport. We just reunited. My friends kept teasing, and I laughed, raising my hand, "My treat, my treat." William copied my gesture, mimicking my tone, "My treat, my treat." He was outgoing, and quickly hit it off with everyone. When we sat down at the restaurant, with William added to our group, the seats fit perfectly. No more, no less. When someone noticed Daniel was missing, they called him. His voice sounded vague. My legs suddenly acted up. "I'm at the hospital." No one could sit still after that. Suddenly, "Is it serious? What did the doctor say?" "Nothing major. The doctor just told me to rest. You guys eat first. Still treat next time." Even though Daniel said that, what had happened before was too serious, and with his family background, my friends looked torn. I stepped in to smooth things over. "You should go check on Daniel. We can have this meal anytime. Besides, William and I are tired. We want to head back and rest." William didn't seem bothered by the sudden departure of our friends. I took William home. Along the way, he chattered excitedly, pointing at flowers and grass by the roadside, asking 100 questions. He always had endless things to say. He'd even strike up a conversation with a stray dog. When we got home, no one could have guessed the man who'd said he was in the hospital was standing at my door. William's hand, which was holding mine, froze. He saw Daniel step forward and spoke first, smiling, "You're Daniel, right?" His voice was warm, friendly. He even used Daniel's name. I glanced at him, slightly surprised. Daniel smiled back but didn't answer. He looked at me and called, "Iris." His gaze stayed on me. "Long time no see," he said again. William didn't seem upset at being ignored. He just held my hand and stood quietly beside me. Daniel started to say something, but I stepped forward to cut him off. introducing William on his own initiative. "This is my boyfriend, William." Daniel's lips pulled into a faint smile after a pause. He mumbled, Then he added, "There might be something wrong with my leg." William spoke up at the right moment. Sounding concerned. "If there's something wrong with your leg, you should go to the hospital right away," he asked patiently. "Do you want me to call an ambulance?" He pulled out his phone, then explained seriously, "After all, my girlfriend isn't a doctor." Daniel ignored him and called my name again. Iris. William paid him no mind, turning to me and asking, "Sis, why isn't he answering me?" How would I know why Daniel was ignoring him? Daniel called me again. Iris. William wouldn't let it go, leaning his face close to mine. "Sis, why?" I pushed his head away. "I don't know." He leaned in again. I could never resist him. I pulled out my door key on instinct, reaching for the lock, only to suddenly remember Daniel was still there. William didn't hide his amusement. "Sis, you forgot Daniel's still at the door." Daniel's expression almost cracked when he saw me looking at him. He finally said, "Can we talk?" William shook my hand. "Sis, what do you need to talk to him about?" It was only then that I realized he'd been acting unusually clingy, almost coquettish, from the start. Catching up slowly, I went along with it. "I don't need to talk to him about anything." With that, I closed the door. Once inside, William hugged me. "I'm jealous." I patted his head. "Jealous of what?" When we started dating, I told him everything, held nothing back. He knew all about my past with Daniel, so why would he be worried? "I hate that you're so dense," he said. I didn't know how to reply, but before I could, he perked up again. "But being dense is good." His voice went soft, muffled against me. "You never notice when other people are hitting on you. But that night," Daniel still called Iris, "did you know your boyfriend has a first love he dated for 4 years? Daniel really was in the hospital. No one knew how serious it was. His ex-girlfriends, who'd once said they'd take care of him, visited one after another. My friends even bet on how long each would last. The result? 2 days most, left after a few hours. My friends said he deserved it, repeatedly telling me not to soften up. Of course I wouldn't. Ever since I took that bank card, I'd never thought of looking back." One night, Daniel's mother suddenly messaged me, "Iris, can you meet Daniel alone?" William was right beside me when she sent it. I refused firmly. "I'm sorry, but my boyfriend might mind." She called, begging, "I'm begging you. Name any price he'll pay it. Daniel won't eat. I'm begging you. Just get him to eat." "Why is this happening to Daniel?" she rambled, her voice breaking. From the fragments of her words, I guessed Daniel's hospital stay was no minor issue. Daniel's mother sobbed, "Why does this have to happen to us? Please help me. He can't go on not eating." William sat quietly beside me, not wanting to make things hard for me. He spoke generously. "It's okay to meet once. Don't worry about me." But there was no connection anymore. Why insist on this meeting? Once I went, they'd use it as an excuse to make me go 100 more times. I stood firm against the distraught woman. "I'm sorry, but I don't owe you anything. I have my own life to live, and so does Daniel." The next day, I heard from friends that Daniel's legs had worse and that low probability event the doctors spoke of had come to pass after regaining the ability to stand. His muscles atrophied. He might return to the life he'd once lived back then, even with me by his side. He could barely endure it, let alone now, having tasted standing again, only to be told he might be paralyzed once more. I didn't reply to that news. Then Daniel called. I thought he'd ask about massages or medicinal oils, but no. He said, "Iris, but you don't think your little boyfriend and you will last?" I didn't answer. He went on, "Want to make a bet?" He added, "Bet on your boyfriend's loyalty." I didn't know how to bet on loyalty, but I knew once you start wanting to test it, trust crumbles instantly. "I'm not playing this silly game with you." But he didn't care about my refusal. He said, "One last thing, just wait and see. All men are the same." I brushed it off as a passing incident. The days that followed were busy with Lunar New Year preparations. William wanted to explore the city with me. Asked me out several times, but I never had the time. He grew dejected, his disappointment plain to see. Finally realizing I was truly busy, he started wandering the city alone. He was never short of friends, so I didn't worry he'd be lonely. Sure enough, in just 2 days, he was heading out excitedly. Some mornings, I'd catch him leaving as I woke. Other times, I'd find only a note in the living room, when I got up as the note spiraled up, a niece slowly crept in. Belatedly, what was he doing? Who was he meeting? I thought of how he'd pestered me during my week-long business trip, asking what I was up to for the first time. I understood how he felt. I'm just slow to warm up. I always catch on to others' feelings a bit too late. I wanted to talk to him properly, but before I found the time, Daniel texted from a new number with a photo. William was laughing brightly with a girl in a CAF in an instant. A niece flooded me that morning. He told me he was meeting friends. Daniel messaged see, all men are the same. I didn't know what he hoped to achieve, but he sent more photos, one after another. He said, guess if he'll come home tonight. I deleted and blocked him. I sat at home, hesitating. Then asked William what he was up to. He replied quickly, eating with friends. I held back from asking, when will you be back? He answered anyway, around 10 p.m. Then I'd wait until 10 p.m. The minutes ticked by. I sat on the couch anxious. At 11 p.m. William still hadn't returned. He hadn't even sent a message. Daniel called from another phone. See, didn't I tell you all men are the same? But I didn't get why he was doing this. Even if William betrays me, so what? If he betrays me, I'll break up with him and like someone else. It's that simple. I'll never lose the courage to try just because I got hurt. That girl who once liked Daniel had told me he wasn't good enough for me back then. I doubted it. He was kind, good-hearted, with countless virtues. So could he not be good enough? Now, looking back objectively at those 2 years I cared for him, I saw his bad temper, his self-abandonment, his refusal to try even with the best medical equipment. Now he wanted to drag me down with him. He really wasn't good enough for me. I waited at home until 1 a.m. William still hadn't come back. But why was I waiting? Why believe Daniel's words instead of asking William myself? Why let Daniel meddle in our relationship? I put on my coat and opened the door. Just as I walked downstairs, I ran into William outside the neighborhood. He got out of a car. The girl from the photo sat in the back. He saw me and froze, calling my name in a rush. Iris, I'm just a little late coming back. The woman in the car saw me too. Waving as the car prepared to leave, I stopped it before it could pull away. The driver cursed at me for being reckless. I tapped on the window. The woman, with a pretty face, asked, what's wrong? I asked her, are you William's first love? She panicked, explaining, you're William's current girlfriend, right? Don't misunderstand. I'm just here on a business trip. I cut her off. Yes, Hernando. William realized I was angry. Leaning over to rush out, we hit traffic, got back a bit late. He'd said 10 p.m. It was 1 a.m. now. Did traffic really take 3 hours? I asked again, yes or no? Yes. During our relationship, William had never told me a word about this first love. Some might not care, but I did. I broke up with William on the spot. The girl hurried out of the car to persuade me, following behind me, talking nonstop. I never meant to interfere. We just ran into each other. William's traveling here too, so we had dinner together. Nothing happened. I swear you can check the surveillance. She rambled on, but I didn't budge. Finally, William snapped, shut up. She froze. William stopped, telling her, you should go first. He watched her leave, then chased after me, following me home and blocking the door so I couldn't go in. We need to talk. I looked up at him. No, we don't. When I'd agreed to date him, I'd said we needed mutual sincerity. I told him everything, down to the smallest detail. But he'd hidden the truth about his first love, hidden that he'd dined with her. I'm not dense. I just chose to be dense because I was with him. I didn't want to chat and laugh with others, didn't want to pick up on their jokes. I chose not to see others' advances, to be cold. That's it. We were done. This relationship had started quickly, and ended just as fast. Friends asked me to bring William along to hang out. I said openly, we broke up. Then started pestering me to let them set me up. I refused again. I still hoped for someone sincere if there was no such person. I'd rather be alone. Daniel's mother kept calling, begging me to visit Daniel. I still refused. I sent her all the recipes and herbal formulas, then booked a flight back to my hometown. No missed flight this time. As I sat in my seat, William took the one beside me. He smiled, eyes crinkling. Sis, we didn't miss each other this time. But he didn't even try to understand why I was angry. He just wanted to make up, no matter what. I'm sorry. Let us get back together. Forgive me. Let's make it right. He repeated these lines over and over when he'd chased me. He'd analyzed every punctuation mark I sent. Now he wouldn't even bother to explain properly. Besides, if I'd refused Daniel's mother's pleas to meet once, I couldn't fathom why he had to meet his first love now. It's over. After getting off the plane, he stood there as I waited for a taxi. I glanced back. He'd already left. A sincere, passionate kid. But his heart wasn't steady, but it was okay, at least I'd felt his passion. I'd still look forward to the next relationship, filled with hope.